Hi, it's me, Vamp, and welcome back to the podcast. I feel like I messed up that a bit, but honestly, I forgot my podcast intro. But anyway, nonetheless, thank you guys for tuning in that do tune into my podcast. Now, I know I've been talking a bit about Warframe in this podcast lately, and I actually moved the name from Warframe purposely so it would just be a podcast in general that I could talk about whatever in, and I'm glad I did. First it was Warframe podcast, Warframe Madness podcast, then it was Vamp Plays podcast, and now it's V for Vamp. And I think V for Vamp is a splendid name, if I may say so myself. But let's talk about Warframe. That's this was a very long roundabout way of going to be talking about Warframe. Very roundabout way to say that I am. But yeah, let's talk about Warframe and the war within. If you're watching this podcast in the future, the War Within has came out already, and you have no clue why I'm so excited. But if you're watching this podcast either on the day it comes out or even up to like half a month after or whatever, you should know that the War Within coming out is coming out soon. I said War Within, but I meant the new war. I meant the new war, guys. I did a slip up, and I would cut this out of the podcast, but I'm not going to cut it out. I'm going to own my mistakes. I slipped up, okay? So yeah, the new war is coming out. It's coming soon. It'll replace everything I said about the War Within with the new war, okay? The new war finally coming out in Warframe. We've been waiting like 4 years or something like that for the new war to come out. It's finally coming out. Hopefully it will be fantastic. I think these past months they really have hyped it up, so I'm curious what it's going to be. And they have been trying as hard as they can to not spoil anything, which I honestly am all for, because part of what made the second dream so good is the fact that it wasn't spoiled, that none of it was spoiled for us at all. That's the big thing. That's the big thing that made it so good, in my humble opinion. Now, will the new war be as good as expectations? We talked about this the last episode of the podcast or a few episodes ago, that there's that super high expectation with the War Within because of the simple fact that it is the War Within. It's a big update, like super big in the making. Like I said, something like around 4 years or so. And then not to mention that this past year, this year 2021, as it is at the time of recording this, they have made a super big deal out of it. They've hyped it up even further, which is very smart from a business point of view. It's super smart for them to hype this thing up. But now I don't think it can get any higher. I don't think the expectations can get any higher. I don't know. I mean, I really can't wait to see it. And I usually try to stay like level good, but not go above it when I'm hyped. But now I'm hyped to a point where if there's a specific, like I'll give you guys an example. Like there's a certain TV show or whatever on, or whatever, and you know I get super hyped for it, super excited, and then I gotta be like, Vamp, calm down, calm down. That's similar to how I feel with the new war, and I don't know how I feel about that. I haven't felt that way about stuff in Warframe for a while, if I'm being honest. Don't get me wrong, Warframe's awesome, and I always have fun playing it. I'm always hyped about stuff, but this next level of hype I haven't felt in a while. Not since they used to release super big updates around Christmas, like 4+ years ago. Like, you know, when they released the second dream, the war within, even the sacrifice. Are you ready for a sacrifice? Okay. See, now I'm just getting hyped. I'm hyping myself up even further now. So, yeah. If you guys are actually watching this or listening to this rather from a YouTube video, feel free to leave in the description below if you are as hyped as I am. And, you know, that's youtube.com/Warframe Madness. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I'm actually very, very hyped about the idea of this. Now, with that said, let's move on from Warframe news for a moment. Let's move to other video games, because other video games are indeed coming out. And guess what? Those games, whether you think they are or not, they are competing with Warframe. Yes, they're competing. They're all competing for, you know, your affection. They're all competing for your attention. Which games are you going to play this holiday season? Are you going to be playing Warframe like non-stop and, you know, playing Warframe, buying stuff on Warframe, spending money on in-game stuff in Warframe, or are you going to be buying other games instead of Warframe and playing those, or are you going to be buying like the Game Pass and playing, I know Halo Infinite is coming out in December, which coincidentally the War Within, no, the new War is also slated to come out in December as well. So yeah, that, and then there's going to be other like maybe like DLCs for certain games, or you know, a bunch of indie titles. I don't know if you guys are into indie games or not. You know, Warframe was actually, fun fact, seen as an indie game at one point in time. But then again, you know, I feel like that happens more often than people think, because the Borderlands series, Borderlands 1 was seen as nothing but an indie title. And I'm saying indie in a way that might seem odd, but no, I actually like a lot of indie games. Let's see. I believe the most recent indie game I probably played was Curse of the Dead Gods. Yeah, I believe that the last indie game I played. I would say Tiny Tina's standalone Wonderland thing, but that's not really an indie game. It's really a DLC of... Okay, let me tell you guys this. I know I'm jumping to a whole different ship right now, kind of, but okay. So Borderlands used to be seen as an indie game, but then when it gained enough popularity that they made a second game, Borderlands 2. Borderlands 2 gained so much popularity. Borderlands 2 became Gearbox's cash cow, as it were. You know, people were buying like $1, $3, $4 skins. People were buying, yes, I said $3 skins. People were buying $3 mini packs. They were buying DLCs. I believe this is around when season passes first even became a real thing. People were buying that. People were buying DLC characters. People were buying all kinds of things, and which was crazy, and it was good. It was really cash cow for Gearbox. And then Gearbox went on to make Borderlands 3. Oddly enough, it's like 7-8 years later, Borderlands 3. Which, you know, they said they were developing it for a long time. I'll be honest, I don't really know how long it takes to develop a game. So if that's how long, then by all means. But Borderlands 3 didn't have the same kick as Borderlands 2. But, you know, it's still popular enough. But back to Borderlands 2, because this is where the story gets interesting. Borderlands 2 came out with a DLC called Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon's Keep. It's a DLC where you are the main characters of the Borderlands universe play a game called Bunkers and Badasses. It's a riff off the tabletop game Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, it's like little fantasy adventure thing with Tiny Tina as the DM or Dungeon Master, for those of you guys that don't know what that means. Well, anyway, it was arguably the most popular DLC out of all of them. So much, and it was the biggest because it essentially retold the whole story of the whole, you know, main campaign of Borderlands 2 from Tiny Tina's perspective, which is a character in the game. At the time, she's a 13-year-old crazy, she's pretty crazy actually. Let's say eccentric, okay? Yeah, she's pretty eccentric. And it also had some sad moments in it too, because she's actually going through personal matters. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but come like 8-9 years later, Gearbox decides, oh, you know what, people really loved this, so why don't we make a sequel to the DLC, but we're going to make the sequel as a whole game into Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which is set to come out sometime next year. So yeah, it's set to come out then, and some people, me included, basically like, that's weird. A DLC is getting a sequel now? I thought only video games got sequels, and then about a week later, bam, in your face, Gearbox releases a game, a standalone game called Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon's Keep Wonderlands, a one-shot adventure. Don't quote me on the title, I could be getting a few words jiggerboard or whatever. Well, anyway, so that gets released and it had Wonderlands in the title. And because it's basically saying, hey, this is a prequel to Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. So, guess what? It's standalone, so people who haven't played Borderlands 2 because they're like, I don't want to play an 8-year-old game. You know, if they haven't played Borderlands 2, it stands reason they haven't played the DLC as well. So this DLC was retinkered a little bit to basically go through everything in Borderlands 2 as far as picking your characters, you know, unlocking costumes and stuff, skins that they call them in that game, and you know, how-to tutorials, putting them in this Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep thing. And that's the main campaign of the story in this DLC. They even give a small opening in the beginning going through all of the, you know, story. You know, the Vault Hunter, they beat, blah blah blah, saved the day, and now they play a game. So yeah, they do that. And from a business point of view, it's very smart, okay? I think it might be one of the smartest things I've seen in a while. Now, it did take them a while, presumably because they were working on Borderlands 3, but they finally were like, hey, we can make a sequel to this DLC. And I can only assume one person in the company, let's call him Tim. I don't even know if there is a Tim in the company, but let's call this person Tim. I can only assume that Gearbox CEO was like, okay, yes, that was a popular DLC, that Tiny Tina DLC. We should make it into a full game sequel. We should make a sequel of the game. And then everyone else is like, but how do we make a sequel of a DLC? Then Tim is like, we could turn the DLC into a full game and sell it as a prequel, maybe. And then Bob, no one likes Bob. Bob is like, that's a, also sorry if your name is Bob. Okay, Bob is like, that's a terrible idea. Who would buy that? But then the CEO is like, Tim, I like the cut of your giblets. You're promoted. You work on top of Bob, meaning that you're Bob's boss now. Okay, I don't know why I went through that whole bit. It kind of entered my mind. So I went through it, and I don't know if you guys have been able to hear my squeaky chair the whole time, because it is a very, very squeaky chair. I actually need to get a new chair sometime in the future. That's how squeaky it is. But, you know what? I digress. I just rambled on about Borderlands for the foreseeable future? Past? Yeah, for the past. Okay. So, long story short, even though I did just explain the whole long story in a longer period of time than it would have took if I didn't do that. It still, yeah, you just have a lot of, you know, a lot to choose from when it comes to this year or next year. Now, oddly enough, if the only two games that you'll ever play in your whole life are Warframe and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands you're waiting for, you're in luck. You can play both of them. You're technically Warframe free to play, so you don't get to spend a penny on Warframe if you don't want to. Yeah, it's optional. Warframe doesn't like say give me your money as soon as you log in. No, it's optional there. So yeah, you can take that option if you want, and maybe you can get like both, 3 games, 5 games, 10 games, all in. Maybe you can do like a 25 days of Christmas with games, one new game every day until you reach all 25, and I don't know. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end it here. I think I've been ranting and raving and carrying on for a long time. So I think I'll carry off, and I'll catch you guys in the future. Later.